to meet you, Charlie. I hope you can understand first rule. I'm a little nervous. There's a very real chance I could wake up tomorrow, front page of YouTube. Charlie Kirk owns man bun idiot with facts and logic. So
destroys.
Yeah, destroys. Okay, so my question is, I agree that stable monogamous relationships often produce the best outcomes for society, but if that structure really works for everyone, why do we consistently see societies, once they become safer and more prosperous, move away from traditional monogamy? And why do so many marriages still end in divorce, even among people who generally try to make it work? And just one final framing there. If you believe in free markets because they are decentralized and they adapt to reality without top-down control, and given the individual ability to form healthy long-term pair bonds vary significantly with factors like genetics and ecologically calibrated attachment styles, why do you reject top-down control in economics, but not extend that same rejection to human behavior in terms of marriage?
Okay, so the first one, the second law of thermodynamics answers your question, is that it's the law of decay. Societies tend to decay against the roots that created them. For example, as a side note, here in this country, you guys invented the idea of free speech. You brought it to the world. You guys do not have free speech in this country anymore. 30 people a day are arrested in the UK for inflammatory social media posts. Someone by the name of Lucy Connolly is currently facing prison time for a Facebook post that was critical of migrants. It is normal, unfortunately, for civilizations to get away from how they once operated and how they once were. Now, to your question, does that answer the first part of your question? You were saying, why do they get away from monogamy? I want to make sure I'm answering your question.
I would say I don't feel that that's a full answer.
Okay, so you're asking why do they get away from what works? Is that correct?
Yes. Well, why do societies make this change once they become more prosperous?
Oh yeah, okay. I mean, because prosperity leads to degeneracy, for sure. That would be the answer. And so once you are prosperous, you tend to no longer have the moral guardrails or the limitations. Let's just say you no longer have delayed gratification because you have instant gratification, because you have a surplus of goods, and then you have a decline of a transcendent moral order. The second part of the question, can you remind me, please, what the second question was? About markets?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, for example, I believe in intervention in markets if there is something that is improper morally. So for example, I do not believe that you should be able to scam your neighbor or have misleading advertising, because I believe in a transcendent moral standard, and the same goes for my personal views on marriage.
Okay, so I think we largely agree on the foundation. I would like to propose something that you might like to think about. So firstly, I absolutely acknowledge that, again, if everyone in society was able to maintain healthy long-term pair bonds, that would be best. Again, there's strong data showing that independent of socioeconomic factors, broken homes are some of the strongest predictors of poor life outcomes.
We totally agree.
Yes. And even, I'm not sure if many people here are aware of this, but if you track, as countries become more socially egalitarian, somewhat surprisingly, rates of female depression and anxiety also spike disproportionately. So I think one of the problems here is that when you try and impose moral absolutism, inevitably, again, due to variance in attachment issues, due to industrialized culture, absent parents, screens, raising kids, around 50% of adults in the West develop attachment disorders, which make it very difficult to maintain long-term pair bonds. And then additionally, you have things like variation in oxytocin receptors, in density and shape, also in vasopressin. There are going to be, even if there's 5% of people who feel that these rules really do not fit them, they will push back. And this will create ideologies that then grow into more wider appealing ideologies, which then, leads to this change. I think this is what happened in the sexual revolution. It started with a push for female autonomy, and then it was almost morphed into a really exaggerated expression of pushing for maximizing individual freedom. And I think that when you try and impose moral absolutism this way, it just inevitably causes pushback. And I think if you were to, as someone with a platform, instead say, hey, monogamy is great, it works best for most people, but I also understand there are some people it doesn't work so well for, more people would hear the message that you want to push.
Okay, thank you for that. That's an interesting, I've actually never gotten that question before. It's very thoughtful. Would you say you're against moral absolutism then?
Yes, I would.
Are you against that absolutely?
No, I'm very open to having my mind changed. And
so it's not an absolute thing?
Well, I'm against moral absolutism.
Are you against moral absolutism absolutely?
No.
Okay, so then you're consistent. So
I think
it's all just kind of, it's preference, not, it's about preference then. You could just basically do whatever you prefer. There is no transcendent moral order.
Well, I think what you're doing there is slightly unfairly putting me into a loop, because I'm very open to having my mind changed.
No, that's
my morals
fine. What I'm
evolve.
saying, though, is that by definitionally, and this is something that will keep on coming back, you must choose what moral standard we live by. I'm very clear as to what moral standard. The lie of the West, of modernity, the last 30 years, is that we're going to have you live and let live, and there will be no moral standard. That itself is a moral standard, and it's a really bad one. And to your point, that yes, it creates more suffering, it creates more despair. And no, I disagree with what you say, and I respect the heart of which you're saying it. I will say that I have a moral obligation not to accommodate when people fall short, but instead try to lift them up towards the standard that is true and that I know that works.
So where I'd push this is I'd ask you, you describe people falling short when they fail to engage in long-term monogamy. What do you think causes that? Why do you think some people struggle?
Many reasons. Economic is one of them, but the biggest is the death of religion and the death of Christianity in the West. As America, I'll just talk about America. The UK is unfortunately far less churched than America, but as America has become less churched, so many of these social ills rise.
So one thing I would say, I study the evolution of behavior, in particular sexual romantic behavior. If you track all the different hunter-gatherer cultures that we can study, and we track how agriculture shapes things, you see that ecological conditions really reliably predict the prevalence of monogamy, certain marriage systems, and what I think is what we refer to as attachment issues. They seem to be an ecological calibration to an environment. In environments that are more unstable, it's less optimal for an individual to grow up with a tendency to rely on long-term pair bonds. And I think there's a mismatch with the modern world, again, coming back to industrialization. There are so many people who raise kids as absent parents. Daycare is massively linked to attachment issues. This then causes people to struggle to bond long-term. And then again, coming back to the genetic part, there's again real research showing that especially vasopressin mutations and oxytocin mutations, some people really just do not have the proclivity for this.
What brings stability? Because you say stability is a good thing, and what would bring stability?
So first of all, I would say we had what you might consider stability in the previous century, and then it became unstable. And then things...
Why?
I'm saying because moral absolutism was imposed.
Moral absolutism was lost. You see, modernity rose. We started to teach our kids moral relativism, and we got rid of moral absolutes. So it's the opposite.
So why was it lost? Was it lost because people stopped pushing from top down?
Start bringing this question to a close.
Why was it lost? That's a question for far smarter minds. I can only tell you that it was. In America, it's honestly one of the worst decisions, not just worst ideas ever, which is modern feminism, largely from Betty Friedan's feminist mystique, which acted as if every woman who's in a monogamous marriage in the States is in some sort of tyrannical environment. And it has led to the women of the West being the most miserable, most depressed, most suicidal, most prescription drug addicted cohort on the planet. And I think we need to appropriately challenge feminism and tell young women that it's okay, in fact, it's courageous to get married and have children again. I think it would solve a lot of our problems.
I agree with that last part. It's okay to get married. It's okay to have children. It's okay to pursue your career or pursue your dream, after getting children. I think the founder of KFC did that in his, 50-something or 60-something years old. But I think there is no time limits to when you can achieve, great things. It happens anytime. So when people claim that I need to get everything, put my life on check before I head to this step, sometimes you end up delaying yourself, you understand? You end up preventing yourself from ascending, you understand, or from getting to the next stage simply because you're waiting for something to work out. Do you get me? So I feel that is what Charlie's talking about. It's trying to let you know that there is no crime being a mother and also achieving great things, you understand? It can happen. Let's go back to the first thing Charlie said. Charlie said sometimes when you get what you want, there are certain things that you don't like. When you get what you want, there are certain things that cease to be priority, you understand? It's just like you going to the West, you understand, whereby getting job is a bit easy. In Africa, people give Thanksgiving, when you have a job or you achieve something. But when you get those things easily in the West, like let's say in the United States, Canada, whatever, you tend to reduce the way you go to church because majority of the things you pray for, you're getting them with ease. Let's say in Africa now, you might find it difficult to get 24-hour stable light. And now you go to, let's say, Canada, you start getting stable light. Now, the eagerness or the zeal, the happiness you get when you have 24-hour light would not freak you anymore, because now you're already used to having it. So that is one thing about human, you understand? The more you get what you want, the more we keep on desiring things. You understand? It's just like you can get, let's say, as at last year you were using iPhone X, and all of a sudden this year you bought iPhone 15. Maybe as at last year your dream was to get iPhone 15, and now that you have it, your dream have changed, or your desire have changed. Now you want to have more. You want to have more, or you don't feel for the 15 anymore. You want them to create another one so that you can patronize, or you can get it. That is our desire. Like, it keep on changing, and the more it change, the more we get kind of used to it. The Z kind of die. You understand? Anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section. It is the first time visiting the channel. Click on the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and remain blessed.